The depiction of guns in cinema, particularly American cinema, is a complex issue that has been the subject of much debate and controversy. While movies are often seen as a form of entertainment, the way in which guns are portrayed in films can have real-world consequences, particularly when it comes to the issue of gun violence. One potential effect of guns in cinema is the normalization of gun violence. When guns are depicted in movies as a natural part of everyday life, it can create the impression that violence and the use of guns is a normal and acceptable way to resolve conflicts. This can be particularly damaging for young viewers who may be more impressionable and less able to distinguish between fantasy and reality. Another potential effect of guns in cinema is the desensitization to violence. When guns are used repeatedly in movies, it can become difficult for viewers to feel shock or horror at the sight of guns being used in real-life situations. This desensitization can lead to a lack of empathy or concern for victims of gun violence, and can make it easier for people to justify the use of guns in real-life situations. Moreover, the portrayal of guns in cinema can also affect the way people perceive gun ownership and use in real-life situations. When guns are portrayed as symbols of power and masculinity, it can create a desire among some viewers to own and use guns in their own lives. This desire can be particularly strong among young men who may be struggling with issues of identity and self-worth. While the impact of guns in cinema on real-world behavior is a subject of ongoing debate, there is some evidence to suggest that the way in which guns are depicted in movies can have real-world consequences. Studies have shown that exposure to gun violence in movies can increase the likelihood of aggressive behavior and desensitization to violence among young people. While the depiction of guns in cinema is a complex issue with no easy answers, it is clear that the way in which guns are portrayed in movies can have real-world consequences. As such, it is important for filmmakers to consider the potential impact of their portrayal of guns on young viewers, and to strive for a nuanced and responsible approach to the use of guns in movies. Guns have been a staple of American cinema since the early days of the film industry, and their portrayal in movies has evolved over time. In the early days of cinema, guns were often depicted as heroic symbols of justice, used by law enforcement officials to protect society and uphold the law. However, as movies became more complex and nuanced, the depiction of guns became more varied and nuanced as well. Today, guns are often portrayed as both symbols of power and destruction, capable of both heroic acts and criminal acts. One interesting aspect of the portrayal of guns in American cinema is their prevalence in movie advertising. Many movie posters feature guns prominently in their advertising, often as a way of signaling to audiences that the film will be action-packed and exciting. This is particularly true of action movies and thrillers, where guns are often used as a shorthand for excitement and danger. However, the use of guns in movie advertising has also been subject to criticism. Some argue that the depiction of guns in movie posters and other forms of advertising can contribute to the normalization of violence and the glamorization of guns. Others argue that the use of guns in movie advertising is simply a reflection of the culture in which movies are made, and that it is not necessarily a problem in and of itself. Regardless of one's opinion on the use of guns in movie advertising, it is clear that guns will continue to play a prominent role in American cinema for the foreseeable future. As long as movies continue to be a reflection of the cultural zeitgeist, guns will remain a potent symbol of power and violence, capable of evoking strong emotions and reactions from audiences. One movie that deals with the issue of guns in a nuanced and thought-provoking way is Gun Crazy, 1949, directed by Joseph H. Lewis. Gun Crazy tells the story of Bart Tare, played by John Dahl, a troubled young man with an obsession with guns who falls in love with a carnival sharpshooter named Annie Laurie Starr, played by Peggy Cummins. Together they embark on a crime spree, using their marksmanship skills to rob banks and elude the police. As the film progresses, it becomes clear that Bart is not simply a criminal, but rather someone who is deeply conflicted about the role that guns play in his life. One of the most striking aspects of Gun Crazy is the way in which it portrays guns as objects of both fascination and fear. Throughout the film, guns are depicted as objects of beauty and power, capable of both destruction and creation. Bart's love of guns is shown to be both a source of joy and a cause of pain, as his obsession with them leads him down a dangerous path. While the film seems to glamorize guns in the earlier part of the films, it also recognizes their destructive power showing the devastating effects they can have on both individuals and society as a whole. Another key theme in Gun Crazy is the relationship between guns and masculinity. Bart's love of guns is linked to his desire to assert his masculinity, but not a desire to kill, to prove himself as a skilled and powerful individual. This is something that is particularly relevant to the era in which the film was made, as the post-World War II period was marked by a renewed emphasis on traditional gender roles and ideas of masculinity. However, the film also shows how this obsession with guns can become toxic, leading to violence and destruction. It is interesting that the film also shows the main female character as being the instigator of the crime spree, and she is the only one who actually kills people in her quest to live a more fanciful life. Overall, Gun Crazy offers a complex and nuanced exploration of the issue of guns in American cinema. By portraying guns as both objects of fascination and fear, the film highlights the ambivalent relationship that many people have with firearms. At the same time, by exploring the connection between guns and masculinity, the film sheds light on some of the deeper cultural and psychological factors that contribute to America's ongoing gun violence problem. Despite being released over 70 years ago, Gun Crazy remains a relevant and thought-provoking commentary on the role of guns in American society, and a reminder of the need for careful consideration and reflection on this complex issue.